Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Autodesk booth. My name is Ken LaRue, and I'm going to be walking you through a presentation about Smoke 2013 Extension 1. And just a little background really quick. Last December, we released Smoke 2013 on the Mac for the first time. And it was received very well, and we heard some comments from people, users, asking us for things such as support for Blackmagic. We always support AJA, we still do. We also, but there were people asked us, can you please add Blackmagic for your in and outs? And we did. It was part of Extension 1. The other thing was we rewrote the trimming tools inside of Smoke, and we heard from people saying, can you add a trim tool? Can you add this? And that's really what we're doing, is we're listening to the users, and we're improving the software as you tell us what you want. And it's really what I want to focus on as we look at the elements of what 2013 offers you. Three main things I want you to walk away from my presentation is the Smoke UI. If you're a Final Cut Pro user or you're a Avid Media Composer user, you should feel very comfortable doing your editorial work inside of Smoke, because we did redesign the entire UI and the working of your editing in Smoke to fit more to your liking, to what you typically do. In fact, the hotkeys by default in 2013 are the Final Cut Pro 7 hotkeys. Your in and outs, your playback, your JKLO workflow, and so on. So hopefully you'll notice that as I show you some of the editing workflow. The other thing is that this is a software that 10 years ago, for me to demonstrate it to you, I had to have a computer that was the size of a refrigerator. These days, obviously, computers are faster. We're demonstrating Smoke on the Mac, on iMacs, right around the corner over here. I travel with my MacBook Pro at a Pegasus Promise Thunderbolt drive, and that's what I use wherever I go. So it's great for portability and accessibility in all of the Mac platforms. But the main thing that I want to stress is the power of Smoke as far as compositing and effects. Yes, it's a very good editor, what I hope you see. But we have all these tools inside of this application that most editors you would never think would be inside of there. You would always have to go to other applications to achieve these special effects or these composites and so on. And you do what we call round tripping. You start off in Final Cut, you go off into another compositing program, you go to a 3D application, you do all this stuff, and you render these files, and you manage all the files, and in the end, you're round tripping between 4 different applications. And that's really the message we have about Smoke, is that it's the all-in-one editing and effects solution on the Mac platform. So those are the 3 main things I want to remember, but there's one more thing I want to say, and that is right now, starting as an IBC special, a couple of days ago we started this, it's going to go to October 25th. You can save up to 20% on the retail cost of Smoke. So you can talk to your reseller, your local distributor, and find out what options you have. In fact, we have a little card, a business card, around the corner by the pod if you want to get a website and some more information on the 20% special. I advise you to go and get that card and check that out. Lastly, there's a new book about to come out by a gentleman named Alexis Herkman. It's a great essential learning tool for Smoke. And in fact, right after my presentation, Alexis will be up here with there's Alexis right now. You're not yet, later. But Alexis will be up here talking about the book and how he used Smoke to create a great short film. And that's really what's great about the book, is you're going to get all the material to be able to follow along and learn Smoke. So the whole message, as I'm going to show you, editors that do more than editing. You do a lot more than just editing, and a perfect example of that is a short film called Fix It in Post. There's a gentleman named Jeremy Hunt who did a film last year called Fix It in Post, used nothing but Smoke, didn't use any other application. He's a compositor, special effect director, editor, very much like you, I'm sure, a person who wears many different hats, and that's really the message of Smoke. You can achieve so much in one application that'll make you more efficient, get the end result done faster, and supply your client exactly what they want. And that's what we're going to start looking at. So I'm going to open up the Smoke UI, and I'm going to go to my 2-view layout, and I'm going to dig down into my material that I have, because this is your typical workflow. I've got my source and my sequence view. So I've got my clips in my media library. I've already imported them. I've got them all prepped and ready to go. I'm already working on a sequence, and I want to start creating my edits. Typical workflow is I'm going to hit my L key to hit my playback. I set my ins. This is stuff you already know. I'm not teaching you anything new. I hit my O. I stop my playback. I now want to go. What happened there? I now want to go back in here and start to edit this in here. Of course, I can use my F10, F9, F11. I've got a series of buttons I can use for insert, overwrite, and so on. I can also just drag from my player, drag it down into my sequence. depending if ripple is on or off, I'll get different results and so on, of course. So this is my point. All the stuff you already know, all the stuff you do every day as far as editing is inside of Smoke 2013. So you step into it, you should feel very comfortable working with it as far as your editorial task. Let me zoom in on my sequence here. So what do you typically do? You start creating your creative edit, and you want to start fine-tuning it, doing ripples and rolls and trims. So I come over here, I got my trim tool, my slip tool, my slide tool. Come into the player, and of course, whether ripple is on or off, we're going to have a different end result. What's going on with the edit and the roll. But what I want to show you also, if I just double-click on my trim view or a trim cut, I step into the new trim view in Extension 2013. I like the fact that I've got these buttons for going 5 frames forward, back, or whatever, but I also love the fact that I can start my playback, and I can now use my hotkeys to start creating my edit to see if the cut really fits the story. Does it really fit what I'm trying to expose and tell inside of the story? So that's a really nice new feature that's been added in Extension 13. So now I've got my cut set the way I want it to be, but I want to do a little more. I want to start adding some color correction to this. I want to really fine-tune this to help tell my story. So to add effects inside of Smoke, you select your clip. You got several different options of doing it, but I'll go to my effects ribbon where I have all my different tools that are available to me. One of them is called ConnectFX, which we're going to look at in a second. That's a full node-based compositor directly in my timeline. But right now, I just want to add a color correction. So I choose my color correction tool, and it's now added to my clip. And in the view UI, I now have parameters that I can start to use to make adjustments to my color correction. But this is just a subset of what's available to me than what this color correction tool offers me. So I love the fact that I have the editor button for any tool that I apply. If I click editor, we step into the full color correction tool, and now I can come in here and really focus on my shot, and I have everything that Smoke offers me as far as color correction. Let me go back out here. I'm going to real quick. That's actually not the clip I want the color correction on. Here's the one I want the color correction on. So let me go and add this. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to do some selective color correction. I want to make a general grade to this, but then my director has asked me if we can make his shirt to be more blue. That's why I'm going to switch to another color correction tool in here. This is the Autodesk color correction tool, but if I go to my color warper, this tool allows me to work on everything, but it also has a whole series of keying tools and selective tools built right inside of it. So at the top level, at the master level, if I just take my black and I drag it down a little bit, I make an adjustment to my white, I can increase my saturation, I'm affecting everything, okay? But here's where I want to isolate just the shirt the guy is wearing. So I'll switch what I'm working on from what's called master to a selective. Now I've got my keying tools that I can come in here and region select his shirt, so I've isolated just the color of his shirt. A matte has been pulled. And if I go over to the end result, if I start dragging down, I can shift the midtones to be more of a blue. So this is really nice because I have the selective color correction at any level inside of my footage, but I also have the top level of the master that I can work with. And of course, I can save a preset if I wanted to. I can name this Ken and say, there's my new color correction that every time I apply a color correction tool, I can access that. But I want to show you an even more efficient way of using your saved effects inside the timeline. So I've got this clip with the color correction applied to it. Now, if I want to apply it to this clip over here also, I can very simply pick it up, drag and drop it. Now it's applied to that clip. I've got it applied to 2 different clips. But what if I want to make an adjustment to it? I've got to do it in 2 different places. So I'm going to show you what we call a gap effect. And this is really a powerful way of altering or affecting multiple clips in your timeline at one point. I'm going to throw away my color correction that I had applied to these. I don't want those. But before I delete this one that I do like, I want to save it, but I want to save it as an effect clip in my bin. If I just select that clip, I can just pick this up, drop it over to my library. Now it is saved as an actual effect clip that I can use in other projects or other clips or other elements inside of here. I want to go and rename this really quick. We'll just name this blue, like so. So now a gap effect. Anywhere you see an empty area in your timeline, this is called a gap. And it's treated as a clip, even though there's no footage in there. So I can add tools into it. So if I select this whole gap area above all these clips right here, what I can do is go and take that color correction and drop it into the gap effect. Now it's going to affect all the clips that are underneath it. And I have only one adjustment to make if I want to affect all of them. So this is introduction to gap effects and adding tools to your clips in the timeline. Let's look at something a little more challenging here. So I'm going to scroll over where I've got some clips here. This is a shot, just a little background on the film. It's called Fix It in Post. You can go on YouTube, you can watch it. I don't have time to play the whole thing, but the idea is this guy's walking around trying to get through his day, and all these crazy things are happening. There's explosions happening. 3D text appears. It's all, the storyline is that there's an editor in Smoke controlling his life, okay? So here we have him standing in front of the green screen. Underneath it, I've got some explosions that were created inside of Maya. Then underneath that, I have a clean backplate. Our job is to key this front clip so that he's going to appear in the scene with explosions happening. So at this point, I'm going to go to a one-view layout. I just want to focus on my shot. I'll select that top clip, and I'll go to my effects ribbon, and I'll choose the axis tool. So I add this tool. Now, when you hear the word axis, of course you think about positioning and altering and rotating, and that's what it does, but it also does a lot more. So let's step into the editor. You can see we've got a lot of options in this tool. First of all, to keep in mind that the minute you add this axis tool to a clip, it's actually a 3D composite that's being composited on the other layers. So I can come in here and rotate and manipulate it in a 3D space. It has cameras, it has lights, and so on. You can even alter and change the shape and bend the image if I needed to. But in this case, I'm only focused on keying and masking. So let me come in and zoom in a little bit more. I'll go to my keying tools by clicking on the keyer. And you'll see luminous key is the default, but I've got 7 different keyers that are available to me to use inside the axis tool. What I'd like to do is use what's called the master keyer, mainly because if you look at this, you can see how drastic the lighting is on the green screen. This is not going to be an easy key. We got a very dark green up here and a lighter green down here. The master keyer allows me to go and sample all ranges of the green, and I can now start to pull. Let me reset that. I let go of my cursor a little early. So let me pick this again and try that one more time. That's what I wanted. So now what I just did is I filled both these pots with the darkest element of the green and the lightest element of the green, and I start to pull my mat. If we look at the mat, we can see we still have a lot of work to do. I love the fact that I can bring my cursor into the player and I start to hover over areas. Smoke is going to give me parameters it's suggesting that we adjust. So I can come in here and start to pull and fine-tune this area. But there's really nothing I can do at one level with one keyer to get everything equal. So instead of adding another keyer on top of this, what the master keyer allows you to do is add what we call a patch. When I choose patch and I start clicking and dragging, think of a patch like you're fixing an area that is a trouble or a trouble spot. I'm selecting and bringing opacity or transparency to the level I'm clicking in. Now at this point, let's just add a mask to clean up the rest of the elements around that. So I go to my garbage mask tool. I also want to look at my incoming clip so I can draw my mask properly. So I'll just draw a mask around this guy. I'll bring him over here by his head, and I'm going to go down and get rid of the rest of this. Okay, so real quickly, let's go break our tangent handles. I want corner points. I could have set a preference, but I didn't. All right, so let's take a look at the end result, and we'll see if we're doing good. So here we have our mask. We're getting there. If I start to scrub through, though, you can see obviously this guy's going to step out of the mask, and I need to animate the mask over time. I could do that manually with auto key on, but a real powerful part of Smoke's whole workflow is its tracking tools. I'll select just that top control point. I'll go over to my tracker over here, and I'll step into the tracker, and you're going to see what it's doing. It's going to give me a tracker box based on the control point for the mask. I'll tell it to just analyze, and Smoke's going to go through and animate that mask for me automatically, saving me 15, 20 minutes of my time trying to do this roto automatic, by hand. So this allows me to focus on other parts while Smoke does all the work. Once it's done, I can go back, and you can see now that my mask has been animated perfectly for me. Okay? So now if I say return, we come out to our timeline. What they did was they scaled him up, and they brought him down in the Y, and this is how they did this shot. So now we've completed the shot. And everything I did here, I've been in the timeline. If I exit out of this, you'll notice that I got all my tools on my clips. I'm done with this composite. Now I want to introduce you to ConnectFX. I mentioned it a couple times, so I'm going to navigate to another shot over here. And in this shot, what we have is we have the couple. We have a camera pullback on the couple. But the idea is this is the reveal point. This is where you realize that you're watching an editor working in Smoke controlling this guy's life. The top clip is a shot of the face of the editor. We're going to use this as the reflection in the monitor that he's working on. And the bottom clip is the actual back of the guy, and we want to key this so that the couple is inside of his monitor. So I'm going to take this into ConnectFX. I'll select all 3 of these clips, and I go over to my tools, and I've got this option that says ConnectFX, but it also says Generate Composite. I'm going to tell it to build an action tool automatically for me, which is our 3D compositor. So I choose ConnectFX. We step into a full node-based compositor. I can get rid of my media bin if I want, so I have a little more space, and it built all these nodes automatically for me. Now, just for reference, if you take a clip and go into ConnectFX by itself, that's what you're doing. You're going to have just that clip, and then you can access all the tools that you want to create whatever effect that you want. In this case, I'm trying to build this composite, so it builds the action node, and it takes my layers, and it brings them in as individual layers into my ConnectFX. Also, one point I want to make, if I look at my timing tab down here, I never lose control of my edit. I always have the ability to edit and change it if I need to. But let's now start focusing on what I need to do here, which is key this so that we're going to have the footage of the people inside the monitor. I'm going to create a new layer very quickly, and I'm going to add this clip as a layer, and I want to go and step into my keying tools. So I double-click on my keyer inside the action tool. We step into this preset, if you will, of keying tools. Just like I had the master keyer out of my timeline, I have it right here inside of ConnectFX. So I'm going to click here and start to sample the screen. So we're pulling the key. I go to my next tool. I go in here to my 2D histogram. I can start to choke this in. I go to my matte edge. Maybe I want to blur this a little bit. So understanding the nodes is kind of important. Really quickly, the colors. Anytime you see a red input, that's your RGB or your front. Anytime you see a blue, that's your matte or your alpha. Anytime you see green, that's your background. So what's happening here is this master keyer is outputting one output that is color suppressing the color of the screen in the scene. But if I hit a hotkey, it's also generating the matte. So that you can see the blue is going down here. And it's just to connect the dots. One goes into the next one, and each one keeps affecting the end result of my composite or my end result of, let's take a look at it, the couple now comped into the scene. One last thing I want to focus on as far as the keyer tools before I move on to the composite. I'm going to zoom in. You can see the edge looks pretty decent. If we go back to our master keyer, notice color suppression is on by default. If I turn that off, you're going to see all that blue spill that is actually falling onto the talent. Well, what's great about this is whatever color I sampled, Smoke will automatically color suppress it. But it also gives me this trackball that I can shift that color if I need to take it further. So if I want to shift this more to a red, I can color correct and suppress that color all at one time. So now let's zoom back and see if we're happy. I'm happy with this. Let's go and say exit out. We're back at ConnectFX, okay? So we now have the guy keyed out, the couple's in his monitor. What I want to do now, though, is animate that element of the editor so that it comes into the scene and reveals that we're watching this guy work in Smoke. So to do this, we're going to step into this action tool. Think of this node as a full 3D environment. When I hit a hotkey, I step into the action schematic. And these nodes allow me to control the transformation, the rotation, the positioning, and the relationship of the layers in 3D space. And what we're going to do is take this layer and animate it so it moves in 3D space away from or behind the camera. And to really see it, I love the fact that I can switch my view to any one of the different angle views, such as my top view. So I'm looking down on my composite now. Here's my camera. If I want to animate my camera, I could do that, but I'm not going to do that. What I want to do is take this layer, and with auto key on at the first frame, I'm just going to drag it until I see that it goes outside of my frame here, so it's not visible at the first frame. Then we want to jump forward several frames. So I'm just going to click in my timeline here, move forward. Let me first do another thing. Let me turn off my layer of this guy because he's kind of distracting at this point. We'll bring him back when we're ready to look at him. But this is where I want to go and select this layer and set a keyframe at this value, maintaining this value in Z. So if I hold a hotkey, I click down, I now set a keyframe. We move forward several frames, and here's where I'll take my clip of the guy and bring it back so it drops into place exactly where I want it to be. So if we scroll through this, you can see we're now going to have this great camera move of the couple, and then it's revealed that we're actually watching this guy working in Smoke. Now let's go and bring back the face for the reflection. So if I go back to my media source and select that layer, I'll tell it to turn it back on, and there he is. But I don't want him full frame to the camera. I only want his face inside of the monitor. So this is what's great about Smoke is your layers are not flat layers anymore. Once you bring them into this tool, I can now switch this to be a bilinear, a bicubic. Well, let's select the right layer, first of all. That'll help. Switch it to a bilinear. And now I can say I want your face to be controlled and stay inside this area and four-corner pin that into the actual monitor. Something like that. And then we can also change our blend modes. Just for reference, Flame and Smoke have a whole series of great blend modes right inside of here. But if you're more comfortable with Photoshop blend modes, just switch your blend type to Photoshop, and now I have all the Photoshop blend modes. I'll choose Screen. I'll take the transparency down a little bit. And because Auto Key is on, we're keyframing this. I'll move forward, go back a little frames. Let's again set a hotkey, set a keyframe so we maintain the transparency. And then I'll move back even a little more, and we'll take this 100% transparent. So this is looking great, except for the fact that now we want that reflection to move with the same animation that we did to the back head of the operator. So here's the whole point of these nodes. Here's where you start to realize the relationship and the power of them. I'm going to tell this axis that I've already animated, where the guy's moving back, to just control this one here. So drag it, drop it. This is now the parent. And now you'll notice as I scroll back in time, both those layers are going to be animated for me automatically. So this is great. I'm happy with this. Let's render this. So I'm going to come out here. I'm going to hit the select the button and hit render. So this is going to take 30 seconds to render this. But while this is rendering, let's stop and think what you do in the round-tripping environment. I'm in Final Cut. I'm in Media Composer. I'm doing my editing. I need to leave that program to go into another application to create a composite. I spend my 15, 20 minutes in that composite, finish it up, render it out, go back to my editor, import it back in, replace it into my timeline. What happens if you need to change something? You got to leave your editor, go back out to the other applications, render it out again, manage all that media. You end up with 15 final files that are named final. I swear this is going to be the final. And then you still don't manage it all, and it's a mess. So with the beauty of all of this, I am in my timeline. I am in my editor. And I come down here and I play this back. And I say, yes, that's what I want. And then I go, no, wait a minute. And this actually did happen. In the previous clips prior to coming into this, you'll see that we have close-ups of our talent, right? Well, this clip, we go into it, and it's a faraway shot. And the director said, you know what, I really wish we were tight on the couple in the very beginning. So we can change that because, first of all, that's a red file, and it was imported at 1/4 the bearing. Now I want to switch it to be half so that I have a larger file. This is the beauty of Smoke. I just click CFX. I say enter the editor. I double-click on that red file. I tell it I'm going to change my debearing on the fly right now while I'm inside of my editor. Once it opens up my history, you're going to see that the resolution, as I said, is 1280 by 675. I look at my debearing setting. It's set at 1/4. I need it to be larger. I just tell it, go to half. Now you're going to notice Smoke on the fly is going to change the debearing on this clip, which means it's going to give me a larger resolution file, which I can zoom in very easily to. So now it's 2560. I can now go and take this tool, get rid of that, select my action tool, select that layer, and because it's a larger file, when I zoom in on it and reposition it at the first frame, I'm not going to have all this pixelization or degrading of the image. And then I can jump forward several frames. With Auto Key on, I'll tell it now, return back to your 100% zoom level, and let's set it back to our X and Y where we want it to be at this point. The whole point is everything was done right here inside of my editor. I didn't have to leave the application and perform different tasks in different applications. Everything is done in one environment where I'm telling my story. So that's really the whole message behind Smoke, is that you're the editor. You're doing a lot more than just editing. You're going to be more efficient if you can be in one application. You can achieve all of this inside of Smoke on the Mac. So last thing I'm going to tell you before we step away from the stage, you can obviously go to the Autodesk website. Let's go full view here. You can obviously go to our Autodesk website. You can download our trial of Smoke. There's lots of great feature videos and so on. In fact, a lot of the stuff is created by me, so you can listen to me a little more if you want. Also, learning. Whenever you're getting into a new application, obviously you want good training. There's tons of good training, and a lot of it's even free. If you go to YouTube, type in Smoke How-Tos, you will find hundreds of videos and tutorials that are totally free, created by Autodesk. This gentleman's name is Grant Kay. He's out of our London office, and this is all Grant does. He does amazing tutorials teaching you how to use this application. There's also area.autodesk.com, where we have blogs. I have a bunch of tutorials there. Then Ripple Training, a very respected training resource. They have a whole series of free training on Smoke. Then I love this. We've got users who use our product that build training that we don't even pay them or ask them to do it. Brian Mulligan is on Premium Beat. Joel Osis, Smoke Training. This is all great resources. And then if you do want to pay for training, FX PhD, and Digital Tutors are great resources for that. And of course, we have Alexis's book, which is coming out very soon, which I have actually seen it, and it's a phenomenal job. Alexis did a great job on this. And again, I love the fact you're going to get all the footage. You're going to get everything that he's worked on so you can build it step by step. Don't forget about 20% off. It's a great time to get into Smoke, to buy Smoke on the Mac with 20% off. I will be back over here by the pod. Anyone wants to come over and visit me, get a detailed look or a hands-on look of Smoke. I do recommend you sticking around, though, for Alexis' presentation next because I think it's a great presentation. But that's our presentation for this half hour. And as I said, come visit me over by the pod. Thank you very much.